Okay, now let's discuss how records are used in Python specifically. And as we already studied what records look like in pseudocode in paper two, but we haven't practiced on how they are implemented in your Python language, for example. And once we have a good understanding of your records in Python, we will be working with file processing, and this time we're using file processing not with text file as with paper 2. We're using file processing with a binary file, and what a binary file is, basically we're storing records in it. As opposed to just simply storing string of data, we want to maintain the original data types and not convert it into string in any way, and that file is saved in your binary file. So without altering the data type. Now, if you remember that a record can have multiple fields of different types, as you can see here, this one has two strings, a date, integer, and currency. So if I maintain this data, even I'm just hypothetically speaking, but if I maintain this record as in a text file like we studied in paper two, the only one technique I can follow is that I can, create an array and store all of this information in one single array representing one record. And when I store that array in my text file, all of this information will be converted into string. So yes, it's a simple method, but it's not very effective, because then when I want to retrieve the information from the text file, I will have all data stored in string, and I'll have to take additional precautions to convert them back to its original form. So that's additional processing, additional code. An easier and more effective method is that instead of converting the data into string, I keep the data in its original form, and it could be any type of data. And with a record, your data is stored in multiple data types. That's the basic motivation behind using records. That I have a problem that cannot be solved by your basic built-in data types, and you have to create a user-defined data type, and you come up with this record. So I want to keep this record in its original form, in original data types, and when I use it, or so, I don't, I might not directly use it, but if some program uses that data, it should be available to that program in its original form. So to maintain records, what we can do is that we can make use of a binary file. Now, as opposed to storing data in text file, using binary files is slightly different. In fact, it's a little tricky compared to your text file. Text file is pretty straightforward. There's a text file stored in the same location as the Python file, and you can work very easily with that. But working with binary files is different, because you need additional library known as the pickle library to access binary files. We'll be looking into that a little bit. First, just a quick recap. If you remember in pseudocode, the syntax for defining a record was type car record, and all of the fields are declared here of their expected data type. So vehicle ID, for example, we're creating a car record. Vehicle ID will be of string type, registration will be of string type, date of registration will be of date type, engine size will be of integer type, and purchase price will be of currency type. And this is my basic record of car record type to hold these 5 pieces of information. So when I have declared a data type, I can declare a variable of this type. So this is what it looks like, declaring this car of type car record. Now this car will have these values right here. And I can also declare arrays of this type car record as well. So basically, as you can see here, the array called car has 100 positions, and in each position is a space reserved to hold a complete car record. So this is this has been discussed in detail in paper two. So if you are a little rusty on this concept, you should visit this topic again. Anyway, so let's check out file processing. If you remember, we started off paper three with file handling and data representation. And there was this topic about file processing, in which we discussed that files can be accessed through serial access, sequential access, and as well as random access. As you can see here, random access, in which we're using hash values to directly pinpoint the position where a particular data can be stored. And this is the typical methods of file accessing. Now, we'll be seeing how sequential and serial and random access can be carried out using your Python code as well. So first of all, just a quick recap. Uh, Previously, we have studied use text files to store and read lines of text. Text files allow us to write strings in serial or sequential manner. So basically, if you remember the lines that you write in your text file are in order of the type of the the in order of how they were written in text file. So if you are using the append mode, which basically means that you're adding a string at the end of the existing file, so the order of the strings added to your text file will be based on what line was written first will be on the top and every other line will come at the end. So this is how basically maintained through your serial access. You have serial access maintained here. We can also, but when you want to store records in a file, we create a binary file. We can store records serially or sequentially. Now, the difference between serial access versus sequential access, again, these are previous concepts from paper 3. The main difference between serial access and sequential access is that serial access maintains order of data based on their time, the time they were created. So there's only chronological order maintained and all values in a serial file. So what data was created first is obviously on the top, and every other data that is created comes after that. Now, there is no other order of data, so simply the data that existed first comes on the top. So it actually makes it quite difficult to search if you have a lot of data, and you will have to basically perform sort of a linear search to find the value that you're looking for. But serial access does have this benefit, and its most important benefit is that it is a very quick method of storing data, and it's a very simple method of organizing data. So if, for example, I want to store a small amount of data, but only for, say, small amount of time for a short interval, then serial access is not a bad idea, because instantly for small amount of data for a small amount of time, it can be very effective. But the size of the data increases, then it starts getting difficult. On the other hand, sequential access means that I'm maintaining the order of data based on some key field. So that key field is unique, for example, for all records. That could be the, for example, in this example, vehicle ID, it could be the vehicle ID. So for example, if I'm using sequential access or sequential storage of file, that means all of the records of car record type are stored based on the vehicle ID. So if a vehicle ID is the value of the vehicle ID, whatever the way was used to calculate the value of the vehicle ID, it could be ASCII or whatever. But if the value or the order of the vehicle ID is the smallest, regardless of whenever it was created, it will come on the top. So if you come to think of this, let's just say you have a list of students in your school, and assuming that the students' names are just hypothetically speaking, let's just assume that all names of all students are unique. So if I were to be making a list of students arriving at school in the morning, and if I were to maintain this record serially, then I would simply write the student's name on top who arrived at school first. So it doesn't matter if his name starts with a Z or an A or an N or M, it doesn't matter. I simply wrote his name first because he was in the school the first. So this is basically how I'm storing serial data. So the student who comes in first is on the top, and every student who comes after that comes after that first student in the list. It doesn't matter what the student's name is. However, in sequential data, based on the same problem here, the students whose name is Z, starts with a Z, for example, will end up at the end of the list. Even if he was the first to arrive in the school, it doesn't matter. But I'm maintaining data sequentially. And in this particular case, the sequential field that I'm using, the key field that I'm using is the student's name. So that student's name, if it is starting with a Z, it will reach the bottom of the list eventually. Even if he has arrived at the first, he was the first student to be in the school, his key field states that his name starts with Z, and that's why based on the sequential storage of his key field, which is name, he will be at the end of the list. And a student whose name is starting with A, maybe if he even if he has come in last, he will end up at the top of the list, near the top of the list. There can be other students starting with A as well, because his name starts with A. The key field, the name starts with the letter A. Now, this can also mean that there's a whole sequence of names with A, whole sequence of names with B. There are no names with C, no names with D, and then there's E's and then F's and then G's. So in between we are missing C's and D's. So what that means is sequential storage is definitely based on the key field, but it does not mean it's definitely contiguous. So I can have missing key fields in between, and that's fine. Secondly, it also means that every time a student arrives to school, I will have to shuffle my data around, because let's just say the first students that came in, the first 5 students that came in, one student's name started with M, the other student's name started with say K. So instantly M comes down below K. Now I moved M to the second position, K to the first position. Another student came out, his name starts with a B. Instantly B reaches the top and every other name comes down. So you see, every time a student comes in, I'm maintaining order based on the key field, and my data is basically being shifted around based on what its value holds. So this is your sequential access versus serial access. We have studied this in great detail in paper 3, chapter 16. So you should visit that lecture again. Anyway, Python does not have a record type. Now that's one of the things that one of the few things that Python does not offer, but that does not mean that you're not allowed to use records. Python does not have a record type. However, we can use class definition to create records. Now, as you can see here in object-oriented programming, we used similar syntax to create a class. And as you remember that this was something like a constructor, and these were the attributes and use self. Now you notice there's one thing different here. None of the attributes are declared as private. I'm not writing anything with a double underscore. Why? Because for records, I don't have any methods. So if I want to access a particular field for a record, I will have to use the dot notation, because I don't have methods. In object-oriented programming, I have methods for accessing your attributes. And I have, therefore, I can go ahead and declare attributes as private and methods as public. And with those methods, I can access the attributes based on how methods work. So that's basically how I'm controlling the access of my variables, access of my attributes. However, in records, the major difference between a record and object is that your record does not have methods. So all attributes, they are both user-defined types, but all attributes for a record have to be declared public, because if I want to access those attributes, I should be able to, because I don't have methods. So I should be able to simply do it using the dot notation. So that's why they are left public. So we got a vehicle car record, class car record. So it resembles, this was exactly the same technique we used for defining a class in OOP. So same method over here, but the difference is that none of my attributes are private. So vehicle ID should be string, registration should be string, date of registration is none, engine size is integer with initialized with a 0, and this purchase price will also be this. Now also notice that there is no constructor where attributes being passed here. So initially when you declare a record of this type, car record type, these values are assigned by default to all records, and you can change them afterwards. So this is how I'm creating a variable of type car record like it was done over here. This car is equal to car record. Again, this is another method that was just like how it's done in OOP as well. But of course, since we don't have any attributes for the constructor, we're not passing any parameters. Sorry, we're not having any parameters for the constructor. We're not passing any parameters when we're declaring a variable of this type. But if it was passing parameters like we did in OOP, we'd have to mention those parameters here. Okay, since we're using dot notation, I want to change the engine size for this car. And what I can do is this car dot engine size is equal to 2500. Using dot notation, I access that field. Similarly, I can also declare arrays. So basically what's happening here is that I create a temporary variable, this car of car record, and I create an array of which has this car type data of 100 times. So this is just another way of creating an array of this type. Uh, you can also create a loop, and in each loop I append this car to it 100 times, and you will have at the end of the loop I have a complete list. In each position of that list I will have a record type of this car at each index position. So that's another method we can use. Since I have created an array, I can access the first, or this in this case it's Python, so it's index position 0 is being used. So car1 means I'm accessing the second index position of the car array. So the second index position is also a record. And for that record, I'm accessing the engine size for that second record and assigning 2500 to it. So basically, dot notation can be used for a single record as well as an array of records as well. So if you're using an array of records, you can simply make use of indexing to access one single record, and dot notation is just like how we did in a typical record as well. So this is how we declare records in Python. It's the same technique as used for object-oriented programming. But difference is attributes are public and there are no methods. Okay, now let's understand how sequential processing takes place with respect to your pseudocode as well as Python. Now, if we have, again, the concept here is binary file. So since I'm trying to save records, I cannot treat it the same way as a text file. And the methods that we discussed in paper 2 will not be applicable here. It has to be treated as a binary file. Sequential file, if we have an array of records, we may want to store the records on disk before the program quits so that we don't lose any data. Okay, one very important application of a record data type and binary file is that, for example, a program is running and you want to, or the program, and you shut your computer down, for example, and your program does what? If you say, for example, you're playing a game, the game can possibly save all of its data in a record and save that record somewhere on your hard disk in a binary file. You may not able to see that binary file, but it's there. And you turn your computer, since the hard disk is so, hard disk is a permanent storage device, so you can proceed turning off your computer there. So when you turn your computer off and turn it back on again, say the next day, and start playing that game again, the game will be able to resume from where you stopped last yesterday. Now, how it does that is basically it looks for that binary file in your hard disk. It loads all of the information in its original form in the game and starts executing the game from there onwards. So this is one reason, one possible application of where a record can be used. And it should make sense to you that I need the data to be in its original form because it's currently running in a game. So saving that data in a text file is completely out of the question. I will save that data in a record file and save it in a binary file so that when I access that data again, it will be in its original form and ready to use right away. We can open a binary file and write one record after another to the file. We can then read the records back into the array and when the program is run again. So the pseudocode version of this process being carried out, since it's sequential file, is done like this. So open the car file. Remember, car file is binary file for write in the write mode. So I want to write a record in the car file. For I, there's a loop for I to the max number of records. This loop will run, and each time a record, this loop is run, this put record is a keyword. I will put a record in the car file from this array. Now, understand the array right now is stored in the main memory. Main memory is not permanent. I want to shut the computer down. So I want to save that data in a car file somewhere in the hard disk. So what's happening here is that I'm putting each record one by one. Since it's inside a loop, I'm accessing each index position, and in each index position there is a record, and I'm placing each record one by one in this binary file. And after I'm done putting all of the records in the binary file, I will simply close the car file so that my changes are permanently saved in my hard disk. Similarly, if I want to retrieve data from a binary file, and store it back in some data structure in my main memory because I want to use it now. Because and anything that was running that needs to be run has to be brought into the main memory. So that means I have to bring it into the my main memory, and that since there are a lot of records, the best option is to bring it in an array. So what I do here is that open car file. This time I'm using the read mode. I'm not writing data, but I'm bringing data back from the hard disk into the main memory. For I to the max number of records, I will get a record from the car file and place it at this index position in the car array. And I will do this every time this loop runs, this line runs. So it will run this number of times, and this at this index position will be the last array is last record that will place in the car array. And after that, you close the car file. So simple technique of how storing data into an array, storing the contents of an array into a car files binary file in my hard disk, and retrieving the contents of a binary file back into the array as mentioned over here. Now, let's assume that I have to do the same thing in Python. Let's see what happens here. For Python, as mentioned earlier, for Python, I have to import the pickle library to be able to manipulate binary files, store data in binary files. So I will import the pickle library, and every file access or record file access code that I run will be part, or subroutine that I will use will be part of the pickle library. So in the first section over here, as mentioned before, I'm creating I'm creating a record type of type car record, and it will have these attributes to it: vehicle ID, registration, date of registration, engine size. I have declared all three as in string, engine size of type integer, and purchase price of type real. My write subroutine is written in this way. I will create this car record of type car record. I will create an array of size 100, and at each position there is a car record. Now I've got 100 size array of type car record. Now I will start a loop. For count in range of 100, this loop will run 100 times. I will simply do what? I will assign the index position at that point. The vehicle ID of that car record, I will simply increment it by count plus 1. So basically what's happening is here that I have, say, for example, my count is starting with 0. I will access the 0th record and give the vehicle ID as 1. Vehicle ID is second. For when the count becomes 1, I will assign it with 2. So what this basically simple code is doing is that vehicle ID is starting the 0th car, vehicle ID is 1, then 2, then 3, and so on and so forth. So this simple subroutine or simple procedure to write, a simple set of steps to assign vehicle IDs with the count value that is in that current loop right now. So in this loop, I have now assigned 100 car IDs of types. Why type string? Because my vehicle ID is of type string. So I will convert, and counter is type integer. So I want to convert that counter into string before I assign it to a record at that index position, and the vehicle ID portion of a record of that index position. So as you can see here, I'm using dot notation with respect to each index position in an array. So when this loop finishes, I have 100 records, and in each record, a vehicle ID has been assigned to it, starting from 1 onwards. Every time, every car is plus 1. And after that, I want to store this data. I want to store this array, car array, complete car array, as mentioned over here, into a binary file. Okay, as you can see here, I have created a binary file. I will show you a program that runs this in subsequent lectures, and you will notice that this subroutine automatically creates the binary file. I don't have to create a binary file any place on my own. When this line runs, it would automatically create a binary file on its own by this name, and it will be in the same location as the same directory as the Python file that you're running. So it automatically creates the binary file, and this is my mode that I'm opening this file with. WB means writing in binary mode. W mean write, and B binary mode. So what I'm doing is that I'm opening a binary file. Binary files extension is I think it's .bin as well, and we're using .dat binary file. So I am creating a binary file by the name of cars, of .dat type, and I'm opening that file in the right binary data mode. And when I open this file, as mentioned before in paper 2 as well, when I open a file in Python, I basically dump the hard disk contents into this variable in my memory. So basically I'm bringing the hard disk contents into this variable in the main memory so that I can use it. So right now this line, what this line does is basically creates a copy of all the data in this binary file or whatever files mentioned here and brings it into this variable so that now I can proceed on using it in my program. After that, what I do is that I run a loop for 100 iterations. And simply what I'm doing is that I'm using a library subroutine that I imported from pickle library. And this subroutine is known as the dump subroutine. So whenever I want to write something in an array, I use the dump subroutine, which is part of this pickle library. So since it's part of the pickle library, I call it pickle.dump. Now what does that does is basically it takes the contents of this array or whatever is written here and dumps it into this binary file. And as you remember that I just associated all of the data in this binary file with this identifier over here. So now basically I'm dumping and I'm storing all of the records one by one in this loop, 100 records one by one, and this car file store here. And after that, I will close the car file. And that means all of this binary data, all of these records that came into this will now be permanently stored in this binary file in my hard disk. And if I want to shut the computer down, I can, because my data is now stored in a hard disk, is permanently stored. Similarly, if I want to, for example, read data from a hard disk. Now, this is where I will show you an example where exception handling can be used to make this error free. Now, let's see how that's done, but in a later lecture, I'll show you this. But right now, let's consider what's happening here. And I'm reading data back from my binary file into my array. So again, a pickle library will be used because I'm using the pickle subroutine over here. So anyway, my read subroutine basically does what? I need an array into which I will store data back into. So I declare an array here by the name of car. I will open a car file, which is actually this binary data file by the name of cars.dat. And this time around, my mode will be read mode, and the B stands for binary, read binary file. So I'm using the read binary file mode, and I'm reading all of the contents of this file and I'm dumping them into car file. So basically this line is again equivalent to this line, but instead of yeah, it's exactly the same thing because I want to bring it into the memory, because right now it's in the hard disk. I bring it to the memory. Now, since it's into the memory, I will do what? I will proceed towards accessing that. I will access this car file. And this time around, instead of reading or storing data in the car file, I will retrieve data from the car file. And as you can see here, I'm using a conditional loop. And the reason I'm using a conditional loop is because I don't exactly know how many records there are. There could be 102 records. I don't know. In this loop, I had a very clear idea because I knew the size of the array. But let's assume that I don't know how many records there are. There could be more than 100. There could be less than 100. So just to be sure that I don't reach an exception. By again, this is exception handling coming here. That an exception in this case would be that I index a position in my file that doesn't have any data into it. So if I cause it to run 100 times, maybe my array terminates, my file has only 99 records in it. So if I try to access that 100 position, that is an exception and my code will crash. So to avoid that, I can make use of this while loop. And as long as the while loop is true, which means that there are actual records in this file. So as long as there are records, while true means as long as there are records, or as long as I have not reached the end of file, this loop will keep on running. So as if the end of file has not yet reached, so while true means that I have not reached the end of file, this loop will keep on running. And in each iteration, what I'm doing is that I'm loading one record. So you see pickle.load from car file, I'm loading one record from my car file and I'm appending it to my car array over here. So in each iteration, I'm simply picking up records from my car file and appending my binary car file and appending it to my car array in my memory. And after I'm done with that, I can close the car file. So this is the reverse of that process over here. And very simple technique, but it's important to keep in mind that I don't want to access a file position that does not exist. Okay, now let's see how random access works with respect to your binary file. So we just studied serial access, we studied sequential access. Now let's see how random access works. Now, if you remember, random access means that I'm using a hash function, and that hash function is basically and in the hash function I'm passing a parameter of a key field, and the key field that I pass into that hash function is basically telling me exactly where that particular record should be stored in wherever that data structure is. So in a sense, that function is telling me where that data is supposed to be. So we studied hashing in paper 4. Hash techniques and open addressing or open hashing has been discussed in great detail. So you're welcome to visit that video as well. So anyway, so if I'm using random access, that means that I'm not actually surfing through the data to access a particular file. I simply place the key field of the file that I'm trying to search for into a hash function, and that hash function should exactly tell me where that file is supposed to be. So I can directly access that index position and retrieve the record from there, provided there are no collisions. So anyway, let's see what's happening here. Instead of storing records in an array, we may want to store each record in a binary file as the record is created. We can read a record, change it, and save it back to in the same place. Note that it only works for fixed length records. Now, this is very important. The storage that I reserve for each record has to be known, so that if my whole binary file is divided, it is divided with respect to the size of the record. So it knows exactly the first 58 bytes is the first record. For example, if assuming that each record is a 58 bytes, then the first record is 58 bytes. So that means byte number 0, say 58, is the first record, and byte number 59 to onwards, next 58 records is second record, and so 58 positions is second record, and next 58 positions is third record. So if it's a fixed length, then this binary random access can work perfectly. So it's very important that each binary file, so each record is of the same length, so that when I'm accessing the file randomly, I should exactly know where a previous record ends and where a new record starts, so that I can actually skip towards that direct record where I want to search the data for, or the direct access to the record that I'm looking for. So I need to have fixed length records for this. We can use hashing function to calculate an address from the record key and store the record at the calculated address in the file. So as always, as when you're using random access, for random access to be successfully used for retrieval of data, it's important that you must have used the same method for storage of data. So always first keep in mind the same hash function, the same technique for storing data random index positions should be used to be able to retrieve data using the same method. So random access is only possible when data was stored in the same way. So just as with hash tables, collisions may occur and records need to be stored in the next free slot. So open hashing can be carried out over here. Now, let's understand the pseudocode option here. Again, this time I open the car file. Remember that my car file is my binary file, but this time I'm opening it for random access. Not read, not write, but random access. I will pass the record. Now I'm storing data, I'm saving a record. So assume that the record I'm trying to save is called this car. And the key field for that I will be using for hashing function is the vehicle ID. So I am passing the vehicle ID of this car to the hash function, and that hash function should retrieve a hash position or an index position where this record should be stored. So that will be my address. Then I will use the seek command to go access this car file and locate this position. Now, this is where the fixed length records comes into great importance here. So say, for example, I was to access the fifth index position. Seeking towards the fifth index position means that I have to skip 4 index positions before that. If I have fixed length records, I will know exactly where the first record ended, where the second record ended, where the third ended, where the fourth ended. Now, when the fourth ended, this next record is the fifth one where I'm supposed to be. So fixed length record is very important, especially considering that I have to seek, I have to go to that position. When I have reached that position, I will simply put this record into this binary file. And prior to this procedure, I must have accessed the index position, the position, exact position where this record has to be stored. And to permanently save our result, I will close my car file. So this is saving a record. Now, on the flip side, let's see what's happening when I'm retrieving the record. Again, I will open my car file again for random mode. I'm trying to find the position of where a particular record should be. So again, I will pass the vehicle ID. It does not have to be part of a record. I could just simply pass a vehicle ID I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be a part of a record. So I can simply pass the vehicle ID here through the hash function. The hash function will tell me the vehicle ID that you're looking for is located at this address. I will seek the car file to that address using fixed length records, of course. I will get the record from this file, from this position, and place it on this variable right here. This is my variable. This is my variable in my memory. And this variable is of type car. And after that, I will close my car file. So basically, it's the reverse of the process. But instead of I'm storing data from a variable to the hard disk, I'm retrieving data from hard disk into a variable in the memory. Seek moves a pointer to the given address, record address. The put record and get record commands access the record at that address. After the command has been executed, the pointer points to the next record in the file. So obviously, since I have stored the record, I have put a record in this position, my next pointer should be pointed out because now that position has been taken up. So let's see what's happening in Python. Importing again pickle library. I create a variable by the name of this car, which will be of type car record as we've done before. I open the cars binary file in binary read and write mode. So this is a new option we've seen here. Instead of write mode and then read mode, I can use read and write mode simultaneously, RB plus. So you can use this for both reading and writing. So RB plus mode, but it's better that you separate your subroutines with separate commands. Anyway, so I open it with this mode right here, and I will access the file. And by the way, this is important because I may have to be using the same subroutine to add and as well as, retrieve data. So I will open the file in this mode and I will dump all the data into this identified main memory. After that, I will pass the vehicle, assume that there is some hashing function defined before. Okay, we're not mentioning the details here, but you have to define a hash function before. You can use any sequence, you can use in ASCII values, whatever you want. So you use a record, a vehicle ID, pass it to the hash function, and they will return an address. Car file seek is a subroutine that is part of the pickle library. I seek to this address. I will dump this record in the car file that I put that in the position that I just seeked. And after that, I will close the file. Similarly, if I want to read the data, I will do the same method. And this time I will seek the file based on some, what you call it, hash value. It will seek that address based on that hash value and based on that address. And this time, instead of, pickle.dump, I will be using pickle.load to retrieve a record as done before, as you can see here, right here. So I'm retrieving a particular record based on the hash value vehicle ID. So where is that record supposed to be stored? Based on the hash value, it will be discovered that this vehicle ID must be stored in this address. I will do car file. Okay, by the way, it should be car file dot seek, car file dot seek, as mentioned over here. There's a dot missing here. Car file dot seek. I will go to this address, and once I've reached this address, I will simply do pickle dot load in the car file what this, and that record will be retrieved from the car file, the binary file, and put in this local variable this car over here. And after that, it close the file. Now this is very important part. This again refers to the fixed size records. In Python, the hash function needs to allow for record size in bytes. For example, if the record size is 58 bytes, then the second record starts at 59. So 0 till 59, that's the first record. The second will start in 59 onwards. So that means the nth record slot starts at n minus 1 multiplied by 58 plus 1. So if, for example, I'm talking about the first record, first 1 minus 1, 0, 0 multiplied by 58 plus 1. So my first record starts at the first position. And similarly, if I'm looking at the second record, 2 minus 1, that's 1 multiplied by 58 plus 1, that's 59th position. So this formula represents the exact position where that record should be. This is how basically your calculation can be used to seek to a particular record. Again, this is only possible if we have fixed size records. Now, in the following lectures, I'll be discussing an example from a previous material that has been come in the past that strictly deals with binary files. And in that, I'll show you how this pickle library can be used and how exactly binary file is created and what it looks like on your desktop. What does it look like? You won't be able to access it because the contents are not they're not visible on any built-in programs, but they can be accessed through your Python file, and you will see that data is being stored and retrieved there just perfectly, inshallah.